pretty good place that we can start adding window lights and interiors. Right now, the painting's feeling flat, and that's okay. That's the step in the where we are in the process of it. But adding lights is going to start to give it a lot more interest, and then later on, atmospheric lights will bring back the depth. So for adding lights, I want to start with the foreground lights, because those are going to be the most intricate. We're so close to them that we can't just paint a screen layer on. We actually have to see inside of those windows and see where the lights are coming from. So I'm going to hide these bridges, and we're going to start with this left building right here. And I've gone ahead already and masked out these windows. It's it looks like it takes more time than it does. It's just like when we were toning down highlights last lesson. You're just creating straight lines and cutting out little windowsills. So I'm going to I found this great building texture of windows and lights. This is from cgtextures.com. They have a bunch of building facades and nighttime cityscape buildings that are just front on and orthographic like this. So I'm going to grab this. Actually, yeah, I'll paste it in here, and I'm going to convert it to a smart object. And the reason I'm going to do that is because I need to put this in perspective. So I'm just going to distort it, match up those lines. And then I'll drop it into our group that has that layer mask of the windows. You can see already that we're getting a nice effect from it. But what we want to do is we want to line up the windows to the windows of the building. So this is just playing with scale. And I'm going to line up like a couple windows at a time. If it's too hard to see now that you've done your nighttime color corrections, you can always throw levels on here and just boost it a little bit. So sometimes, the gaps between windows aren't going to line up from any reference to a specific building in your painting. But what we're going to do is we're going to split this out into a couple different layers of windows. So we'll get a couple to line up, we'll isolate those, and then we'll move on to another group of windows to line up. So right now, these are lining up nice. These are lining up nice. And these are lining up nice. Just mask that out. Create a copy. Put it underneath and line up our next group. And sometimes I'll create a levels adjustment just to know what the old windows are and what the new ones are. Grab these. Grab these. And these. And I'll just do this a couple times until I get all of the windows in there. Now, these foreground buildings are going to be the ones that take the most amount of time because there's a lot more detail, and the process does speed up as you get closer to, or more and more into the background. The nice thing also about doing this method is you get a lot of variation in the windows. You get a lot of happy accidents for free. One of the tricky things with painting on lights is our brain kind of defaults to finding patterns. So you don't want to put in patterns in these windows, and it's really easy if you're just painting lights on and off by hand to by accident add those patterns in, and we don't want to do that. So using photo reference for this kind of stops you from creating patterns because the real world inherently doesn't have those patterns, so you get that randomness. And at this point, if you want to, and what I'll do just to speed up this process, I'll merge these down. I'll grab the clone tool and I'll just set it to current layer. And now we can just fill in some of these windows. And remember to grab from different parts just so that it doesn't look cloned. I can keep that red layer on too, so I know what I've already painted and what I haven't. And you might not want to paint in all of the windows because there are going to be lights off, and we're actually going to take out some of these. But let's get a base in here first. Yeah, I think this is a good start. And then I'm going to set this to screen and create a levels adjustment. And then just tone it down. And sometimes screen, if you have a lot of these light pieces here, sometimes you don't want those, the little window shades and reflections. One of the ways you can get rid of that is going to your blend if options. And if it's a bright spot, let those shades go on top of your windows. And I'll just adjust the colors of that light. And then if I want to make some windows brighter and some darker, I can go in here with the soft light layer and black and white and just hit black paint strokes to tone things down and white to make them a little brighter. You see when I add that bridge on top too, it just, you get even more breakup. But it has a nice feeling of randomness, and And it feels like there's a lot of details in here. You can actually look inside and see little walls or windows or plants. And if you didn't want the window shades in there, I can take the blend if options out, set it to normal instead of screen, and then just color correct around that. Again, using our top levels to check our black levels. Make sure those colors are in a similar place. And then just leave it like that. And I'll just do one more building. It's the same process across all these front and mid-ground buildings. As you get further away, you don't need to spend as much time getting those intricate details, and I'll show you how to handle that next. But for now, let's just take a mid-ground building where this has a ton of windows and you don't necessarily want to be lining up every single one. So what I'll do is I'm going to bring in another window image, something like this. And what I'll do with this is actually duplicate it, set it to screen, and then just offset it. So what I'm gonna do is fill in all these black in-betweens, all the dividers. Using blend if, and I'll make sure it's not affecting any of the current windows. Actually, we might not even need to set it to screen. We can just use that blend if to blend it. Now it looks messy now, but when we get it in here into our painting, we put it inside of our window panes that we've already masked out. You have those natural divides. So now we just need to match the scale, line it up a bit. And we have a good start. And for this, I will set it to screen. Do some color correction to it. And also, now that I have these windows masked out, I can make them darker and get rid of a lot of those highlights and reflections just with the levels adjustment inside of this group. This is a good base, and what I'm going to do on top of that is just create a layer mask, and now I can kind of paint out the lights where I don't want them. So I don't want them on every single floor. So I'm just painting them out with black, and sometimes I just want to tone it down. So it's just like a hint of light. And again, be careful of patterns. It's something that you have to be conscious of at all times, is to keep yourself random. I'll create my soft light layer on top too, just to tone down these bottom lights. Maybe bring down the highlights overall and then go back in and paint that white soft light in there to punch up different windows here and there. And keep in mind that these windows have a source of light. And you know, we're getting that for free a lot, but if you want to emphasize the light in a window, look for the light source and emphasize it around there. So if we have that really hot spot and we want to emphasize the light, then we should emphasize it more there and then the fall off around it. And again, if we wanted to go and clean up these different things, we could just go back to clone tool and grab an area and just paint it right in. Or adding lights into these, some of the windows that didn't get it from our reference image. That clone tool can just let us add that right in. So that's the basic process for adding in interiors. That I'm just going to populate this throughout the foreground, and midground, and then show you how we handle background buildings where maybe you don't want to spend that much time or that much detail inside of those windows.